What's going on? It's Jason Heath, and 3 times a year, a little treasure comes into my mailbox. One of the great benefits of being a member of the International Society of Bassists, and there are many benefits, but one is getting Bass World, which is the journal for the ISB. And it's the only publication devoted solely to the bass. There used to be a magazine called Double Bassist back in the day. I believe it was published by the same people that did the Strad, but that magazine ceased publication a long time ago. Renan Meyer and Brett Edmondson had a really cool publication that I believe is not happening any longer, and really the only one left standing is Bass World. It's been around for a long time. I remember back when I was 15 years old getting the Bass Journal. It was called something different back then, I can't remember, but opening it up and looking and just feeling connected to this whole world of bass players. I was growing up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, not a large city, and you can kind of feel isolated as a musician there. But I felt this connection to the community because of this publication. And I thought we'd take a look at the latest publication. You can kind of see one of the benefits to being a part of the ISB. So let's dive into the latest issue of Bass World. On the cover, we got Scott Pingel, who is the principal bassist of the San Francisco Symphony. This is a very cool concert where he played with Metallica, and we've actually done an interview with Scott about that. I will link up to that up here. So check that out. What a cool experience. And actually, this is not an ego stroke. It's just the way it is. I actually interviewed Scott, and that became this piece in the magazine. So I'm not talking about it just because it's my piece, although it is kind of cool. So this is Scott and Lars Ulrich on stage at the Chase Center here in San Francisco, opening that up. How did they open up this center? That's the home of the Golden State Warriors. Well, they started with a San Francisco Metallica collab concert, which is super cool. 2 concerts actually sold out, and through an interesting series of events, Scott ended up doing Anesthesia, Pulling Teeth as a tribute to the late, great Cliff Burton of Metallica. We got the one and only Ron Carter right there with the realist as we dive in. DePaul University, where I used to teach, actually. There's a lot of Jason in this magazine. And as we dive in, got info about the 2021 ISB convention in Lincoln, Nebraska, and we hope that'll be taking place live. We'll find out. There are always some really good features in here. There are a lot of regular columns. There are a lot of special features. And one of the cool things is if you're an ISB member, you get access to every single printed publication that the ISB has done, going back to the very first letters from Gary Carr back in the 60s. They also started offering digital-only memberships as well as print editions. I got the print here, but I do a lot of digital reading too. So we dive in. We've got a message from the president. And again, it's kind of cool to just sort of see what's happening in the bass world, take the pulse of the bass world. You can see the companies. You can learn a little bit more about who makes instruments and who sells instruments, like Shank Strings in Pennsylvania, great shop. And right here, boom, off the bat, Ron Carter, interview. How cool is that? And then Christian Dillingham, who's teaching bass at Indiana University. I've had him on the podcast a couple times. I'll link up to him too. Check him out. And this is Pizzicato Practice, Expanding Your Approach. That's super interesting. I find myself going through and taking notes on the different columns, and sometimes I reach out to people for an interview to dig deeper, and it's just really cool to hear all these different perspectives of the bass community. So we've already, just a few pages in, we've had a Ron Carter interview. We've had a story about one of the major symphony orchestra principal bassists playing with Metallica to open 2 sold-out shows, and then digging into pizzicato technique with Christian. The wonderful Randy Kertz does a column called Body and Bass. He puts out YouTube videos about body and bass too, and he's just a wonderful resource for body and bass. And also, many of these people have been on the podcast, so I'll link up to everybody I'm talking about. If they've been on, you can check out their episode. We had a great time with Randy, actually. Randy and Chichi Nwanoko and Steve Bailey and John Patitucci, we did a live event in 2019. I will link up to that. That is worth checking out for sure. Just about bass and the body and those 3 players and their experiences getting through various physical things and how Randy helped them. We got advice from Jack Hill in the Luthier Corner on what to look for, what to think about when you're buying a new or an old bass. Boom, Discover Double Bass right there. Marcus Machado, what a great player, and love Discover Double Bass for sure. Heather Miller Lardin does Rumblings Tunes, which is related to early music and the bass. And this is an article from a cellist, Continual Collaborations. That's cool. Another one of the major American bass shops, Robertson and Sons. Building a Jazz Vocabulary Part 11. And so luckily, if you are an ISB member, you can go back and check out the first 10 parts of this. Get the PDFs, put them on your iPad, whatever you like to do, take notes on them. It's a great resource. And then with Chris Kosky, we get this cool column with Mike Forfia, Wisdom from an Academic and Career Counselor. And Mike has been on my podcast, and he also did an interview with Victor Wooten that we put out on my podcast a couple of years ago. Really interesting player. He won the ISB Jazz Competition a couple of conventions ago. He has an interesting blended career as someone in academia, but who's also a working bassist. I love that they're featuring Missy Mazzoli's Dark with Excessive Bright. This is such a cool piece, and actually Maxime Bibeau, the person for whom this concerto was originally written, he's been on my podcast. I actually did an interview with him at his house in Sydney. It feels like a million years ago, pre-pandemic. It was in November of 2019. And again, I'll link up to all these in the description below. But definitely interesting piece, and interesting composer, and Max is an interesting artist, and it's so cool to see this piece getting played more and more being written about it like this. I'm cool. This is done by Robin Kesselman. He's also been on the podcast. You noticing a theme? This, I think, is a new column called My Turn: Thoughts on Being a Musician Bassist by Dennis Pratt of Warwick, Rhode Island. That's really cool. And then we've got a review from Barry Green. Barry and I put together this online bass summit during the summer of 2020, and he got really into this Nadine bass mic by Ear Trumpet Labs. I'm actually doing a review video of that right now, so I'm in the process of testing it out, and I'm glad I have this. I'm going to be referring to this. They always throw in some album reviews in Bass World, and it's kind of cool to see who's put what out and what's new. It's really, it's fun for me. And people who've passed on, they feature them in Bass World too, so it's always sad. It's great to see them memorialized. And again, all of these issues are available to you if you're an ISB member. You just go on the website and you can dig through and you can search. It's super useful, particularly for me because I'm doing a lot of bass-related research. It's just a wonderful resource for anybody who's into the bass. There we go. One of the many benefits of being an ISB member. Definitely check them out. ISBWorldOffice.com is the website, and I'd love to have you be a part of this organization. I've been, how old am I now? Yeah, 30 years. I've been at the ISB for 30 years. It's crazy. It's crazy. And the convention, which will hopefully be in person, but if it's online or some sort of hybrid form, it is absolutely worth checking out. It's worth every penny. It's worth every moment of your time. It's a total game changer for anybody with any interest in bass. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.